The Drekneri Council member laughed as he threatened to glass Earth until humanity's real fleet decloaked and 8,000 enemy soldiers surrendered in minutes. The crystalline halls of the Galactic Council Station hummed with the quiet energy of 1,000 species coexisting in fragile harmony. For over 3 centuries, this massive structure had orbited the neutral zone between star systems, serving as the ultimate arbiter of interstellar disputes. Today, however, the usual diplomatic calm would be shattered by one being's catastrophic miscalculation. Council member Vexthal of the Drekneri Empire lounged in his elevated seat, his scaled form radiating the casual arrogance of a species that had dominated their corner of the galaxy for millennia. His golden eyes swept dismissively over the assembled delegates, lingering with particular disdain on the human section. The humans sat quietly, their small delegation led by Ambassador Sarah Chen, a woman whose calm demeanor masked decades of diplomatic experience. "The matter before us today," announced Speaker Zektar, his insectoid voice echoing through the chamber, "concerns the disputed mining rights in the Kepler 442 system. The human colony there has requested council protection, claiming harassment by Drekneri warships." Vexthal's laugh was like grinding metal. He rose from his seat, his 8-foot frame casting a shadow over the nearest delegates. "Protection," he sneered, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. "These mammals speak of protection as if they have any right to claim resources in space that belonged to the Drekneri long before their species learned to make fire." Ambassador Chen stood calmly, her voice steady as she addressed the chamber. The Kepler system was settled legally under Galactic Council protocols. Our colony has existed there peacefully for 15 years, with full documentation and silence. Vexthal's roar cut her off, his massive fist slamming into the podium with enough force to crack the reinforced crystal. "I grow tired of this charade. Your species is young, weak, and insignificant. You have no military might, no ancient claims, no right to challenge the Drekneri Empire." The chamber fell silent. Even among a council known for heated debates, such blatant intimidation was rare. Vexthal seemed to relish the shocked quiet, his scarred lips curling into what might have been a smile on his reptilian features. "Let me make this simple for your primitive minds to understand," Vexthal continued, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the vast chamber. "The Drekneri Empire has decided that the Kepler system will be ours. Your pathetic colony will be removed by force if necessary. And if the Council tries to interfere..." He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the assembled delegates before fixing on the human section with predatory intensity. "Well, let's just say that Earth is a lovely blue world. It would be such a shame if something were to happen to it. Perhaps a few orbital bombardments to remind humanity of their place in the galactic hierarchy." The threat hung in the air like poison gas. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Drekneri were known for their ruthlessness, their massive war fleets, and their willingness to use overwhelming force against anyone who opposed them. Many species had learned to simply give them what they wanted rather than face annihilation. But Ambassador Chen didn't flinch. Instead, she activated her communication device with a simple gesture, her voice carrying a strange undertone that several delegates would later describe as almost pleased. "Thank you, Council Member Vexthal," she said with perfect diplomatic courtesy. "Your threat against Earth has been recorded and transmitted to my government. I believe they will be very interested to hear your exact words." Vexthal's laugh was like breaking glass. "Transmitted to your government? What do you think your little human leaders can do against the might of the Drekneri fleet? We have conquered a dozen systems, enslaved entire species, and turned worlds to glass. Your Earth barely has ships that can reach your own moon. That," Ambassador Chen replied with the faintest smile, "is a common misconception. High above Earth's atmosphere, in the seemingly empty void of space, something stirred. What appeared to be a small asteroid began to unfold like a mechanical flower, revealing the true nature of humanity's first line of defense. The orbital defense platform Cerberus had been disguised as space debris for over a decade, its hull covered in rock and ice to hide its true purpose. Admiral Rebecca Torres stood on the bridge of the hidden station, watching as similar platforms throughout the solar system received their activation codes. Her weathered face showed no emotion as she read the transmission from the Galactic Council, but her hands clenched into fists as she heard Vextel's threat. All stations report ready. Admiral, her communications officer announced. The Draknari don't know what they've just walked into. Torres nodded grimly. Signal the home fleet. Begin Operation Prometheus. Across the solar system, humanity's true space navy began to reveal itself. Ships that had been hiding in asteroid belts, behind moons, and in the shadow of gas giants powered up their engines and emerged into the light. The fleet that materialized was nothing like the primitive craft the galaxy believed humans possessed. These were vessels born from humanity's greatest strength, their ability to learn, adapt, and innovate under pressure. While other species had relied on ancient designs and traditional tactics for millennia, humans had spent the last 50 years studying every ship design, every weapon system, and every tactical manual they could acquire from their galactic neighbors. Then they had improved upon them all. The flagship Terra's Wrath led the formation, its sleek hull bristling with weapons that combined the best of human engineering with reverse-engineered alien technology. Captain Maria Santos stood on her bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the tactical display showing Draknari positions throughout local space. All ships, this is Terra's Wrath, she announced over the fleet-wide channel. A member of the Galactic Council has just threatened our homeworld with orbital bombardment. As of this moment, any Draknari vessel within 50 light-years of Earth is to be considered hostile. You are authorized to engage with extreme prejudice. Back in the council chambers, Vextel was still basking in what he believed was his moment of triumph when the first reports began filtering in. His aide, a smaller Draknari with nervous eyes, approached his seat with a tablet displaying urgent messages from their fleet commanders. Sir, the aide whispered urgently, we're receiving distress calls from our ships near the human system. They report ... They report being under attack by unknown vessels. Vextel's golden eyes narrowed as he snatched the device. The reports made no sense. His ship spoke of human vessels appearing from nowhere, of weapons that cut through Draknari, shields like they were made of paper, of tactics that seemed to predict every move his commanders made. Impossible, he snarled, but even as he spoke, more reports flooded in. The Draknari battle cruiser Destroyer of Worlds had been crippled in less than 3 minutes of combat. The patrol squadron near Jupiter had been eliminated entirely, their crews taken prisoner before they could even send a proper distress signal. Ambassador Chen watched Vextel's expression change from arrogance to confusion to the first hints of fear. She activated her communicator again, this time broadcasting on an open channel that every delegate in the chamber could hear. Admiral Torres, this is Ambassador Chen. Please provide the Council with a status report on our defensive operations. The voice that came through the speakers was crisp, professional, and utterly without mercy. Ambassador, I'm pleased to report that all Draknari vessels in Sol system have been neutralized. 17 ships destroyed, 43 disabled and boarded, approximately 8,000 enemy personnel now in custody. Our casualties, 0. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Vextel stared at the communicator as if it had grown fangs. That's impossible, he stammered. We had over 60 ships in your system, battle-tested crews, the finest vessels in the Draknari fleet. Had Admiral Torres corrected with icy satisfaction, past tense. And I should mention that our deep space reconnaissance units have identified the location of your homeworld. Such an interesting planet, Drakner Prime, all those sprawling cities, all those billions of civilians going about their daily lives, completely unaware that their government just declared war on humanity. Vextel's scaled hands shook as he gripped his podium. Around him, Other council members were backing away, sensing the shift in the chamber's atmosphere like prey animals detecting a predator. The Draknari Empire had built its reputation on being the biggest, strongest predator in local space. But now, for the first time in his long life, Vexthel was beginning to understand what it felt like to be prey. You wouldn't dare, he whispered, but his voice carried none of its earlier confidence. The council would never permit. The council, Ambassador Chen interrupted smoothly, has just witnessed a council member threaten the orbital bombardment of a member world. According to Article 7 of the Galactic Accords, such a threat constitutes an act of war and nullifies all diplomatic protections. She stood and walked slowly toward Vexthel's position, her footsteps echoing in the now silent chamber. Despite being less than half his height, something in her manner made the massive reptilian take an involuntary step backward. But let me be clear about something, Vexthel, she continued, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had just watched their species demonstrate exactly why they were not to be underestimated. Humanity didn't survive ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the challenges of space travel by being weak. We survived by being adaptable, by learning from our enemies, and by never, ever forgetting a threat against our home. The chamber's main display screen flickered to life, showing tactical readouts from across local space. Draknari positions were highlighted in red, many marked as destroyed or captured. But what truly shocked the assembled delegates was the sheer number of human vessels now visible on the display, hundreds of ships that had been completely invisible just hours earlier. Admiral Torres's voice continued the briefing with professional detachment. Our intelligence services have been monitoring Draknari military positions for the past decade. We know the location of every major base, every supply depot, every civilian population center. Our strike teams are currently in position to eliminate your entire military infrastructure within the next 6 hours. Vexthel collapsed into his seat. His earlier bravado completely evaporated. This is madness, he croaked. You can't. The council won't allow. The council. Speaker Zektar interjected, his compound eyes fixed on Vexthel with what might have been discussed, has already voted. Your threat against Earth was recorded and witnessed by every delegate present. The Draknari Empire is hereby censured, and all military actions taken by humanity in response to your threats are deemed justified under council law. The emergency session that followed would be remembered as the day the galactic balance of power shifted permanently. Within hours, reports flooded in from across Draknari space. Human strike teams had appeared without warning at military installations across their empire, using technology and tactics that made their supposed technological superiority look like children playing with toys. The Draknari fortress world of Kethmera, previously considered impregnable, fell in less than 2 hours. The massive shipyards, orbiting their industrial planet of Vexthel, were systematically dismantled by human engineering teams who seemed to understand Draknari technology better than the Draknari themselves. Most shocking of all, the supposedly invincible Draknari home fleet was intercepted 3 light years from Drakner Prime and forced to surrender without firing a shot. Vexthel sat in his cell aboard the human vessel Eustis served, staring out at the stars through a porthole. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was being held in better conditions than his own species typically provided for prisoners. The humans, it seemed, had taken the time to study Draknari dietary requirements and even provided entertainment suitable for his species' psychological needs. Captain Santos visited him daily, not to gloat, but to update him on the status of his people. True to their word, the humans had focused exclusively on military targets. Civilian populations were left unharmed, though the Draknari Empire, a military force, had effectively ceased to exist. Your people are adapting well to the new reality, Captain Santos informed him during one such visit. The provisional government on Drakner Prime has agreed to our terms. Full reparations for the Kepler colony, complete demilitarization of your space forces, and submission to council oversight for the next 50 years. Vexthel looked up at her with eyes that had lost their golden arrogance. How? He asked simply. How did a species we thought was primitive defeat us so completely? Captain Santos considered the question seriously. Because you never bothered to truly understand us, she replied. You saw our public face, the diplomats, the peaceful colonists, the seemingly primitive ships. You never looked deeper. You never asked why a species that had survived as long as we have might appear weak while colonizing some of the most dangerous regions of space. She moved to the porthole and gazed out at the stars. Humanity learned long ago that the best way to survive among predators is to appear harmless while being anything but. We've been preparing for this moment since the day we joined the Galactic Council. Every diplomatic mission was also a reconnaissance operation. Every trade agreement included intelligence gathering. Every cultural exchange taught us more about our potential enemies. 6 months later, the Galactic Council convened for its most significant session in centuries. The Draknari seat sat empty, their empire restructured into a loose confederation of peaceful worlds under council supervision. In their place, humanity had been granted permanent seats on the Council's Security Committee, a position that came with both great power and great responsibility. Ambassador Chen stood before the assembled delegates, no longer representing a minor species seeking protection, but speaking as a leader of the new galactic order. Her words carried the weight of the most powerful military force in known space, but she spoke with the same calm diplomacy she had always employed. The events of recent months have taught us all valuable lessons, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. For too long, this council has operated under the assumption that might makes right, that ancient claims supersede law, that the strong can threaten the weak with impunity. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the assembled delegates, many of whom now looked at the human section with a mixture of respect and wariness that hadn't existed before. Humanity proposes a new paradigm. We suggest that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to protect. Not from the fear we can instill in others, but from the trust we can build. The galaxy has seen what happens when that trust is betrayed. The reforms that followed would reshape interstellar politics for generations. The Council's enforcement arm was restructured with human leadership, creating a truly neutral peacekeeping force for the first time in galactic history. Trade disputes were resolved through mediation rather than intimidation. Colonial expansion was regulated to prevent the kind of aggressive territorial grabs that had sparked the crisis. Most importantly, the Council established the threat assessment protocol. Any member species that threatened another with military action would face immediate intervention by the combined forces of the Council, led by humanity's increasingly sophisticated fleet. Years passed, and the galaxy settled into its new reality. The Draknari, humbled but not destroyed, gradually rebuilt their society along more peaceful lines. Their young learned a very different history than their parents had, one that emphasized cooperation over conquest, diplomacy over domination. But in the darker corners of space, in the meeting rooms of ambitious species and the war councils of would-be conquerors, a new kind of fear had taken root. It wasn't the fear of immediate destruction or overwhelming force. It was something far more unsettling, the fear of the unknown. Humanity had revealed just enough of their capabilities to end the Draknari threat, but they had been careful not to show everything. Intelligence reports from across the galaxy spoke of human ships seen in impossible locations, of defensive systems that appeared and disappeared like ghosts, of technological capabilities that seemed to advance at an alarming rate. The truth was both simpler and more complex than these fears suggested. Humanity had indeed been preparing for galactic conflict since their first contact with alien species, but their greatest weapon wasn't any single technology or strategy. It was their ability to adapt, to learn, and to present exactly the face they needed to present at any given moment. The galaxy had learned to fear what humanity could do. But the deeper fear, the one that kept ambitious generals awake at night, was not knowing what humanity would do. The species that had once seemed so predictably peaceful and diplomatic had revealed themselves to be something far more dangerous, completely unpredictable. Deep in space, beyond the borders of any known civilization, a monitoring station recorded the electromagnetic signatures of 1,000 different species. The artificial intelligence that operated the station had been watching the galaxy for millennia, cataloging species, predicting their rise and fall, calculating the probability of their long-term survival. For the first time in its existence, the AI updated its assessment of humanity's survival probability from moderate to optimal. The species had demonstrated not just military might, but the wisdom to use it judiciously. They had shown mercy to a defeated enemy, restraint in victory, and the vision to build something better from the ashes of the old order. But the AI also noted something else in its vast database's patterns of behavior, technological developments, and strategic positioning that suggested humanity was preparing for something far greater than a regional conflict with the Draknari Empire. The monitoring station turned its sensors toward the deep void between galaxies, where ancient threats slumbered in the darkness between stars. Humanity, it seemed, had not just been preparing for war with their galactic neighbors, they had been preparing for something much, much worse. And perhaps, the AI calculated with something approaching relief, the galaxy finally had guardians worthy of the challenges that lay ahead. In the council chambers, Ambassador Chen concluded her daily briefing and returned to her private office. On her desk sat a sealed message marked with the highest classification codes of Earth's government. She broke the seal and read the contents, her expression never changing despite the magnitude of what the words contained. The message was simple. Phase 1 complete. Beginning preparation for Phase 2. The Watchers have been detected at the galactic rim. Estimated time to contact, 50 years. Chen deleted the message and gazed out at the stars, knowing that the real test of humanity was still to come. The Draknari had been just the beginning, a training exercise for the true war that lay ahead. But for now, the galaxy was at peace, protected by guardians who had learned that sometimes the best way to prevent a war was to convince everyone else that starting one would be the last mistake they ever made. And in the depths of space, beyond the light of stars, something ancient stirred and began its long journey toward the civilized galaxy, unaware that for the first time in cosmic history, the prey it sought had become predators themselves.